The shortest amount of time that anyone has managed to beat the original Super Mario Bros. In is 4 minutes and 54.5 seconds.
Oh my god! Yes! Yes! It's over! It's over!
The fastest time for a human being to run a mile is 3 minutes and 43 seconds. And the fastest F1 lap ever completed was just under 1 minute and 19 seconds. In only 56 seconds, a 1 kilometer bike race was completed. And in 10 seconds less than that, the fastest 100-meter swim.
It is a new world record!
The quickest time for a Tetris 40-line sprint is only about 14 seconds. And in under 10 seconds sits the world record for the 100-meter dash.
Charging to the front, Gay's coming but can't catch him. Usain Bolt, look at the time, 9:58 world.
The world record for a cup stacking full cycle is just 4.739 seconds. But in even less time than that sits the world record for solving a Rubik's Cube. 3.05 seconds. That's all the time it took from scramble to solve. All this speed is the culmination of an entire community, constantly refining their skills to find the fastest possible way that a Rubik's Cube can be solved. A Rubik's Cube is a rotating combination puzzle toy with 6 faces and 9 squares on each side that most people likely view as an insurmountable task to return to its initial state after scrambling. These things are famous for being complicated and have been followed by the running joke of being seemingly impossible for 4 decades.
My boyfriend can do it in 25. Says it's all in the wrist.
20 seconds. Tops.
Don't ask me. I can't do it at all. What? It's impossible.
And this is somewhat understandable. Before the internet and video tutorials, learning to solve a cube could be incredibly difficult.
How quick can you Rubik?
After all, if we take the stated 500 million cubes sold by Rubiks since its invention, and then add all the additional knockoffs and custom cubes, we can estimate maybe around 700 million cubes in the world, give or take a wide range. Now, based on my own estimates and just some educated guesses, I'd say that around 35% of those cubes are in the hands of someone who just casually owns them, or maybe like a kid who got one for Christmas. Another 10% maybe are the ones actually owned by someone interested in cubing, whether competitively or just as a solo pastime. Then I think a good guess is that around half of all cubes have been stored away somewhere, lost or forgotten in an attic, or generally just not seeing the light of day. Now, if we also consider how common it is for someone to mix up a cube even though they don't know how to solve it, I would make a completely personal estimate that around 1/3 of all cubes in the world, that's almost 250,000, are currently, at this moment, scrambled. On top of that, there's a decent chance that these cubes stay scrambled and that no one is coming to fix them. But think of it, with the right person or a little commitment, it might only take seconds to finally put it back into place. It might also take hours, but I encourage you to tackle that challenge. Let's together help change that percentage a little, and in the end, the validation of that last turn into a fully solved cube will bring so much exhilaration, I guarantee it. Throughout this video, we will keep coming back to this cube. It probably doesn't look all that different from your scrambled cube, besides the small detail of this one being digital. And if you do have a cube that's been untouched, then make the jump and mix it up. After all, that's what it was made to do. Together, we'll walk through the steps of solving a Rubik's Cube. At the same time, learning how it works, how people do it so quickly, and all about the community that has formed with this puzzle toy at its heart. Remember to take it all slow. You can always pause or go back and watch a step over again if you need to. And if you don't have a cube or just don't want to follow along, that's totally okay too. It will still be great insight to just see the process happen, and I promise this video will still be interesting. Before we get started, it's important to know that cubing is a bit random, so there's a completely possible chance that you might skip an entire step of the tutorial. In fact, it's likely that each time you try, it's a scramble never seen before, so you might have to do every step. Let's start out with something easy. I recommend that you play with the cube for a while and just get comfortable with the way it turns. This will be really helpful for the first step, where our goal is to make a cross on the white side. Now, what makes this a little more complicated is that your white edge pieces also need to match with the correct center colors, as you can see here. Making this happen is one of the few steps you might be able to just do intuitively, so it's possible you'll get ahead of me on this process. But let's first find the white center piece and face it upwards. We'll keep it this way for the whole step, so remember that that's the way the cube is facing whenever we're talking about it. Then you're going to want to find an edge piece on the bottom row that has a white side and a side with a color. Turn just that bottom row so that the color matches with the correct center. And then just turn that whole front face so that it lines up with the white cross. If one of the white edge pieces is not on the bottom row and instead in the middle, you can get it out by simply turning that face once to the bottom row and then moving as needed. Now, you also might run into the issue of a piece not being oriented correctly and the white side facing out like this. To fix this, we'll keep that piece on the bottom row and then just turn it away one time from the center it matches with, making sure to still keep facing that same side. Then turn that side face once to create a match with the center color. Finally, you can rotate that front face to click with the white cross also. Additionally, you can still rotate that other side back now, and it will return to the same way it was in case you already completed that edge of the cross. This is the first step in learning to solve a Rubik's Cube, but don't be too hard on yourself if you're still struggling to follow. It can take a while to become instinctual, so just keep trying while we dive more into the cube as a whole. The Rubik's Cube, initially called the Magic Cube, was invented in 1974 by Hungarian architect Erno Rubik. He originally created the puzzle as a challenge for his architecture students, but the toy became so popular that by 1977 it began being available for Hungarian consumers. Its popularity would only continue to rise though, and as the 80s rolled around, the cube became available internationally, eventually becoming synonymous with the decades.
Warning, once you get your hands on Rubik's Cube, you may never be able to put it down. Rubik's Cube, over 3 billion combinations, but just one solution from Ideal.
Technically this is correct, but there are actually over 43 billion possible ways to scramble a Rubik's Cube. Oh, I apologize, 43 trillion possible scrambles. Except I lied again, because there are actually 43 quintillion, 252 quadrillion, 3 trillion, 274 billion, 489,856,000 ways to scramble a Rubik's Cube. It's an understatement to say this commercial was shooting a little low. All that said, it got one thing right. There is one solution. But what makes that solution exponentially more interesting is the lengths people will go to achieve it faster and faster.
Start.
5 years after the cube became publicly available in 1982, the first Speedcubing competition was held in Budapest, organized by Erno himself.
California. He came to the United States 3 years ago with his family from Vietnam. impossibly Rubik cube.
This competition saw the first ever official Rubik's Cube world record, with a time of 22.95 seconds, set by American Min Tai. An impressively good time to start official record keeping. The popularity of competitive Rubik's Cube solving began fading in the time after this competition, and its revival wouldn't begin until the early 2000s. The next official record finally came in 2003, when the World Cube Association was founded and speedcubing competitions started being officially held. At this event, Dan Knights knocked the record down by over 6 seconds, thanks to improved solving techniques and practice. In 2004, Shotaro Makasumi began a reign of record holding, setting 4 new records in a row. These jumps were possible through the use of the CFOP method, which is a 4-stage process used to solve a Rubik's Cube quickly, still used by many top solvers today. This, along with newer, faster first 2-layer insertions, that's the F in CFOP, allowed the record to plummet. By 2007, the record was pushed to 10.36 through the development of new finger techniques, which are optimized turns with minimal full hand movement, along with significant improvements in speedcubes themselves, which enabled speedier turning and optimized corner cuts. The sub-10-second barrier would finally be broken by Thibaut Jacquinot in May of 2007 with a 9.86 through intense optimization of algorithms and serious commitment to achieving new speeds. But the record lowering didn't stop there, and with full CFOP adoption and the optimization of the last 2 steps, orientation and permutation of last layers, the record was bound to continue falling. After Eric Ackersdijk's 7.08 in 2008, a new record wouldn't be achieved for over 2 years, but when it did, it would be by a legend. From 2010 to 2011, Australian speedcuber Felix Zemdegs would set new world records 7 times in a row, including 2 instances of doing so twice in one day. There's a strong argument that Felix is the best speedcuber to ever solve, and it comes from his many advancements in cubing technique, along with his incredible speed-solving skills. These records came from using OLL and PLL to their full potential, along with more major advancements in speedcubes. This is also the time when the adoption of color-neutral solving came in, where you solve on whichever colored side is most advantageous, rather than just sticking to white or yellow like in the past. Felix's streak would finally be broken by Mats Valk in 2013 with a 5.55, 2 years after the previous record. These changes were fueled by continuous improvements in speedcube designs, including the rise of magnetic cubes, which increased control, stability, and of course speed. It would take another 2 years for that record to be broken by Colin Burns with a 5.25, right on the cusp of sub 5 seconds. November 21st, 2015 is considered one of the greatest days in speedcubing history, as Lucas Etter finally broke the sub 5 second barrier with a time of 4.90. And yet records were still on the horizon. Inspection phases were getting better, cubers were more prepared, last layer algorithms and skips were becoming consistent, and cubes were state of the art. In November of 2018, speedcuber Yu Shengdu would break another Felix world record, along with the sub 4 barrier by over half a second, ending with a time of 3.47 seconds. This record would then stand for almost 5 years. By this point, nearly every top-level solve approached a perceived human limit, with major fallbacks often just being bad luck in the randomness of the scramble difficulty. Beating the world record would require mastery of inspection, technique execution, a person's emotional state, and the cube in their hands. So that's exactly what they aimed to do. Max Park, another speedcubing legend, would break the record with a 3.13 in June of 2023 through the near-perfect execution of speedcubing techniques. And yet, 2025 would see improvements still, as the record was pushed down to 3.08 by Yihang Wang, and then finally in April down to 3.05 by Xuanyi Gang, where it still stands as of August 31st, 2025. The sub 3 second barrier is now in sight, and professional cubers are right on its heels. By the time you're watching this, who knows how many of the world records from the intro of this video have been broken. And history may have already been made with the Rubik's Cube too. You can visit the WCA website now to see where the Rubik's Cube world record currently stands. If you're thinking about trying to take on the record yourself, you're first going to have to better understand algorithms. Now you already know a bit of the purpose of CFOP, but what is an algorithm really? Well, a Rubik's Cube algorithm is a basic sequence of turns that you do in order to change the cube into a different state, including solved. Each shuffled cube has its own unique algorithm for the turns that scrambled it. Then there are algorithm sets used to solve them. For example, here is the full algorithm for the scrambled cube you're seeing in the tutorial. If you did these turns in reverse, it would solve the cube again. Of course, we don't usually know this order, so we have to follow a longer path that will solve any scramble, but with additional effort. Algorithms are made up of symbols representing turns, so let's start by breaking this down. We're going to use the red side as the side facing us, and the white side pointed up. While the cube is like this, the red side is called the front, and the orange is the back. Blue would be the right, and green is the left. White is on the top or up, and yellow is on the bottom or down. As you solve the cube, you'll end up rotating the entire thing constantly, but these definitions will stay in the same places relative to you. This is important when following an algorithm because the symbols represent directional turns. The letter F means front, so you would turn the front-facing side 90 degrees clockwise. R means a clockwise turn of the right side and L of the left side. Be careful here to make sure the turn is actually going clockwise, which is the default. Remember that from the front, it will look the opposite on each side. U stands for up and represents turning the top face of the cube once, and D stands for down with a turn of the bottom. Again, remember to make sure that you're going clockwise. Sometimes you do have to make a counterclockwise turn though. This is represented by adding an apostrophe to a letter symbol. This means a clockwise turn, and this means a counterclockwise one. You also sometimes run into a 2 after a letter, such as this. This means that you're turning that face twice to make it 180 degrees instead of 90. In that case, you can obviously go either clockwise or counterclockwise to get to the same point. These symbols make up every algorithm and are the basic constructs of solving a cube. Let's practice this new information by covering some simple algorithm sets important towards learning to solve. We're going to do what's often called a righty and a lefty. Here are the algorithms. For a righty, you're going to turn the right side clockwise once, then the top clockwise once. Next, turn the right side counterclockwise once, and the top counterclockwise once. Think of it like doing 2 turns and then undoing them. You can actually practice this by doing it over and over, and after 6 times, it should be back to the point you started. A lefty is very similar but inverted. First, do a counterclockwise turn on the left face, then a counterclockwise turn on the top face. Next, turn the left face clockwise once, and then the top face clockwise once. Just like the righty, you can do this multiple times and end up back where you started. And there you go, you just learned a basic algorithm set of turns that will help you solve the cube. In fact, let's practice these techniques now. Our next goal is to complete the white face by correctly solving the corners around our white cross. Let's face the white side down for now to take a look. For this step, you'll need to be sure to match the corners so that all 3 colors are in the right spot and the correct orientation. At the moment, your corners will currently be in the top row or the bottom row. We want to get a corner in the top row and align it above the correct spot it should go into. This corner is now in the right spot since it matches the 2 colors of the middles and has a white side. If your corner is in the bottom row incorrectly, you can get it out by holding the cube so that the wrong piece is on the bottom right-hand side of the front face, and then do a single righty. Once you have your corner aligned above the correct spot, hold the cube so that the corner is in the top right of your front face. Then you can just do a righty over and over until the corner is correctly placed and has the white side pointed down. Now do this with all the remaining corners until they're all correctly placed, and one whole layer of the cube should be completed. You can actually do this whole step the same way inverted, using lefties in place of righties. For some turns, it's actually quicker to use one or the other, so feel free to experiment, and eventually it will just come naturally. Depending on the cube you're using, it might feel difficult to turn quickly. This is because the original Rubik's cubes aren't made for speed. The pieces are blocky and fit together squarely, causing more friction. Speed cubes are designed specifically to mitigate those problems, exchanging the interior for one that allows for more movement. For example, pieces are slimmer and fit around a circular interior, allowing for more speedy turns. Cubers also often use cubes that have interior springs or magnets that keep the pieces from being as crammed together and reduce friction while turning. Some even have magnets on the edges of pieces themselves, helping sides align precisely after each turn. Since these cubes are more loose and fluid, it allows for better techniques and things like corner cutting, where pieces aren't required to be perfectly lined up in order to turn. With so many cube designs, solvers can pick what fits their style best, and there are actually some major brands that make faster and faster cubes. GAN, QY Toys, Moyu, and Rubik's Speed are a few major players, but there are many different options for speed cubes and tons of opportunities to find what feels right. These brands are actually major players in the speedcubing world, and even sponsor cubers at major events, each to be the face of their version of the Rubik's Cube. The best place to browse speed cubes, or really anything cubing related, is on Speedcube Shop. They're a staple in the cubing community and a great place to start looking at getting your first speed cube. The records, events, and rules of competitions are all managed by the World Cube Association. The WCA is run by volunteers all the way from the local level to the WCA board, and together they help these events happen all over the world. They're also in charge of what events are official competitions, starting with the 3x3, but not ending anywhere close. All we've discussed so far is the classic 3x3 Rubik's Cube, and it is by far the most popular cube to solve, but there are actually 17 official WCA competitions using 11 different kinds of puzzle toys. The 3x3 cube is easily the most solved cube, as well as the one that garners the most attention. Its first official competition was the one back in 1982, and you'd be hard-pressed to find competitions now that don't include 3x3 solving. The second most popular cube in competition is the 2x2, which is much simpler than the 3x3 and causes solves to seem to happen in an instant. The first official competitions for 2x2 were held in 2004. Because of its simplicity and speed, this cube often tends to be extra popular with younger cubers, who do not disappoint with their times. While it is simple, the fastest 2x2 solvers still end up memorizing an array of algorithms to make sure they only turn where it's absolutely necessary. Something that's really important when a great time has to be less than a second. The 4x4 cube goes the opposite way, adding an additional layer to the 3x3. These cubes first saw official competitive solving in 2003. As cubes get larger, they obviously get more complicated and take longer to solve. 4x4s are commonly tackled by first matching all the pieces of the two internal layers, and then basically treating the solve the same as a 3x3. Larger cubes also deal with the scary concept of parities, where the orientation or position of a few pieces are switched right at the end of a solve. These often take a whole additional set of algorithms to fix and are the kind of reason larger cubes are more complex. 5x5s are somewhat similar, but again take more steps and time. These cubes also first saw competition in 2003, and the common method here is the same, first matching the internal 3 sets of pieces and then using 3x3 solving methods. At this point, solvers also have to be careful to not break the cube while solving it. Larger cubes have a lot more pieces, so when you're turning them really quickly, it's easier for them to break apart. If a cube does break, it's not that complicated to put back together, but it can be tedious and definitely would not help your time. This can sometimes happen in competition to any kind of speed cube. When it does, the competitor has to choose to either put the cube back together and finish the solve, or take a DNF, which means that the time is not counted at all and can't contribute towards an average score. WCA events for the 6x6 began in 2009, and this cube is even more complicated than the last. There are a few methods to solve the cube, but again, the 3x3 reduction method is the common go-to. This cube is complicated enough that it's very uncommon to see solves take less than a minute to complete. Max Park only recently broke the sub 1 minute barrier for the first time in 2022. The largest cube currently in official competitive play is the 7x7, which is a challenge to conquer. These cubes are complicated and take a lot of endurance to solve at a top level, usually taking multiple minutes of serious focus and speed. WCA records for the 7x7 go back to 2009, and just like the previous cubes, the 3x3 reduction method is the common go-to for achieving them. This of course comes with much more complicated algorithms and more steps, along with major parity possibilities.
7x7 is like reading a book. It's just like relaxing.
Exactly. It is pretty cool. There are two additional competitions for solving the 3x3 in unique ways. The first of these events is 3x3 one-handed, which conceptually follows the same system as normal 3x3 competition, but as the name suggests, only allows the use of one hand. Since this limits mobility, it requires modified techniques. It also has records that are slightly longer than using two hands, but not really that far off. The first one-handed competitions were in 2003, and this event is often popular with expert cubers who are looking for another challenge. An additional one of these challenges is 3x3 fewest moves, or FMC. FMC isn't a speed event, and the timer is dropped altogether in place of an hour limit. Here the goal is to examine a given cube scramble and then write out an algorithm that would solve that cube in the smallest number of steps. You're provided paper and a pen, and you're allowed to bring your own cubes to test your solution, but at the end of the hour you have to have a written out algorithm for the solution, the goal for it to be as short as possible. The current world record for fewest moves is only 16 turns. To put this into perspective, 20 turns is considered God's number, because any scrambled Rubik's Cube could be solved in 20 turns or less with absolute perfect play. 16 is 4 turns less than that, relying on both getting a lucky scramble and knowing exactly how to best solve it. While lowering the record is theoretically possible, it would take some incredible luck and amazing skills, likely not to happen for a long time. The next puzzles forego the common Rubik's Cube shape for more unique looks. The first of these is Skewb, which uses the same skills, but the actual methods are different. This is because Skewb rotates on its corners, so algorithms are changed and it makes for a very unique looking competitive solve. Skewb competitions began in 2014 and are reminiscent of the 2x2 because of its simplicity and short solving times, but benefits from memorizing a wide variety of possible algorithms to speed things up. This distortion of the basic cube goes one step further with Square 1, which is designed in a way that makes the scrambled cube look like a jumbled mess and returns to a cube shape once solved. This shape-shifting again makes for a unique look in solving and requires more complex techniques to achieve, along with dealing with occasional parity problems like larger cubes. Square 1 was first competed with in 2003, and record times are somewhat comparable to the traditional 3x3 times. Pyraminx moves away from the cube shape altogether by switching to triangles. Official Pyraminx competitions began in 2003, and today this is actually the third most popular of the 17 official competitions put on by the WCA. Solving is relatively simple, with world record times being under a second.
Like I said, it's one of the sprint events, as people would call them. You know, it's very fast paced. So at a top level, you know, even the slightest mistakes make a big difference in your ranking or your time. Because it's like, if you get a +2 on 3x3, it sucks, but, it's not like a deal breaker, but like a +2 on Pyraminx can really shake things up.
The Megaminx is an intimidating looking puzzle with 12 sides of 5 edges each. That being said, the basic system for solving this cube is very similar to the beginner methods used to solve the 3x3. Cubers start by creating a star on one side, similar to the white cross method, and then work through the layers from there. Solving times are longer than the 3x3 though, attributed to the much higher required move count. This event officially began competitions in 2003, just like the majority of previous ones. The most unique looking of the competitive puzzle toys also began official play the same year, that being Clock. This obviously looks much different than a Rubik's Cube, but it definitely falls in the same category. Clocks have 4 dials, 1 in each corner, and 4 pins in the center. The goal is to make both sides of the clock have all of the hands pointing in the same direction. If all 4 pins are up facing you, the whole clock face will turn. If only one is up, the 4 faces around it will turn. And if all but one is up, it will just change that corner. Consider though that the inverse is happening on the opposite side, and both need to be solved to finish. This seems complicated, but with practice it becomes incredibly intuitive, and professional solves usually only take a few seconds. Solving a Rubik's Cube is not that hard once you know what you're doing. Solving a Rubik's Cube fast is a bit harder, but with practice it also becomes much easier. Cubers are always looking for the next challenge, and it was only reasonable to take competitive speedcubing to the next level. So, they closed their eyes. The last 4 WCA events are all blindfold events, which means they're solving a Rubik's Cube without being able to see their hands change it. 3x3 blindfold was introduced in 2003 and currently has a world record time of only 12 seconds. That's only 4 times longer than when you can see what you're doing. How this works is that inspection time for the cube is included in your overall time. Normally when speedcubing, you're allotted 15 seconds maximum to inspect a scrambled cube before your time actually starts. Here though, your time starts the moment you first see the cube. You can take as long as you want to inspect it, but you can't change it at all until your blindfold is on. Then both inspection time and solving time are counted in your overall time. This means that the cuber must inspect the cube until they know every step needed to solve it, memorize those steps, and then put the blindfold on and do them. You might not even know if you messed up or not until the solve is over. "4x4 Blindfolded" also began in 2003 and obviously takes even more skill. The way cubers do this is by using a special memorization technique. First, they mentally assign letters to sticker positions on the cube. Then using a consistent set of algorithms, they figure out which pieces need to move where, and turn that into a string of those letters which represent the movements of those pieces to where they need to go. With these letters, they can create a short sentence or simple story, which is what they actually memorize. This sticks much better in the short-term memory than a raw string of letters or a list of turns. With this, they can put the blindfold on and walk through their story, making the correct moves along the way. The same technique allows for 5x5 blindfold solving, which is the largest cube solved blindfolded, and like the rest, came into official play in 2003. While solving the 3x3 cube blindfolded only requires around 24 letters put into sentences, the larger cubes are more complex and therefore require more letters.
For reference, a 4x4 is about 50 letters and a 5x5 is about 80 letters.
By this point, cubers are pushing their short-term memory to its limits, but there is still one more official event to go over, and it takes things to another level still. If a couple of minutes of blindfolded solving isn't enough for you, how about trying an hour? If memorizing a couple of sentences is too simple, how about keeping track of dozens? If solving a cube blindfolded isn't enough of a challenge, how about solving multiple? How about trying multi-blind? Multi-blind is probably the pinnacle of Rubik's Cube solving. I'm inserting that opinion right in because I stand by it. In this event, cubers have to solve multiple cubes blindfolded, back to back, without removing the blindfold. Yeah, it's not memorize, solve, it's memorizing all of the cubes first and then solving all of the cubes at once, without looking back. This event was first officially held in 2007 and begins with the competitor stating how many cubes they plan to solve. They're given 10 minutes for each cube, with a maximum time of 1 hour, even if more than 6 are planned. The cuber is then provided that number of scrambled cubes, and the time starts counting down the moment they begin inspection. They have to examine and memorize all the cubes in front of them, and even place them in a way where they can find them again once blindfolded, as no assistance is allowed. Once the blindfold is on, they have to go back through each cube and remember the needed steps to solve them. The end score is based on how many cubes they were able to correctly solve, minus any unsuccessful attempts or unfinished cubes. For example, if someone declared they were solving 8 cubes, finished solving 7 and only 6 were correct, they would have solved 6 out of 8, but their score would be 4 out of 8 since you minus the 2 failed cubes from the total succeeded. Now that you understand how multi-blind works, I want you to take a second and try to guess what you think the official world record is for this event. Have a guess? Well, the answer is 63 out of 66 cubes, all memorized and then solved while blindfolded in a single hour. Yeah, this number is insane, and the level that cubers can push their memorization skills to is beyond impressive. In order to pull this off, a more intensive memorization technique is required. This technique is often called the memory palace. Also called the Roman rooms technique or the method of loci, the memory palace is a system that allows someone to store a large amount of information in their short or medium-term memory. This is basically possible by taking advantage of the way the brain makes connections and sort of compartmentalizing your memory and then storing those sentences in different places. When solving, you can move back through those places over time and bring back the memory connected to them.
I take the cover off and the timer starts. Then I memorize each cube, put the blindfold on, and then solve them. So if I want to do 3, I do 3. If I want to do 5, I get 10 minutes per cube, so I get 50 minutes. But the cap is an hour, so if I wanted to do 20 cubes, I'd still only get the hour.
So basically, I imagine myself in a location I'm very familiar with. So I'll do like my house or my apartment at school.
The first cube is going to go in my older daughter's bedroom, and the next one's going to go in my bedroom. So then as I'm solving them, I just walk through my house and remember the story that I'm having happening in each one of those rooms, and that tells me how to solve that cube.
Spatial memory is just naturally better than just memory of, a random string of letters, for example.
So I can turn each scrambled cube into kind of a story that I'm telling.
Create images in my mind, and then I put those images in places I'm very familiar with, and sort of create like a story, and then I could think back of that, of the location, and then I remember the story that happened there.
Having just kind of 100 different places that I'm familiar with, it could just be a bunch of different locations around your house, could be just different places around where you go to school or work, and just having that association is so powerful, and it helps you memorize so many things.
It's a skill that, without knowing how it's done, it just seems like it would be impossible.
Yes, I'm not actually visualizing a cube at all. I'm thinking of things happening in places I'm familiar with, and then I know how to solve the cube from there.
It's so powerful to have different groups of them associated with different spaces that you might be familiar with, because that way it helps you keep them separated.
The limits of the human mind are a little bit further than I thought they were.
Most people, I think, if they weren't limited by the time, if they just gave themselves, if they just took a week off and just devoted themselves to like multi-blind only, they could probably memorize several hundred cubes, and just the memory palace will just carry them through it. But within the hour, I'm able to do about 50 cubes within an hour, and I spend about 40 minutes of that on the memorization and then 20 minutes on the solving.
And Stanley isn't just theorizing here. Graham Siggins is another famous member of the cubing community, and he's known for his insane multi-blind abilities. On June 1st of 2024, he began what would turn into an 11-hour live stream where he would attempt to memorize and then blindfold solve 300 Rubik's Cubes. The only thing more insane than attempting this is the fact that he successfully solved 288 of them. Multi-blind solves are some of the most impressive things in all of cubing. Competitions for these events don't even happen that often because of how intensive the solves are and just how many cubes they are required to make happen. But with that, we've looked at all 17 of the official cubing events and how they work, although there are a wide variety of other cubes and competitions that are done for just personal records. Some of these include blindfold and multi-blind versions of other cubes, and puzzles that are even larger than the 7x7. Some much larger. There are also events that used to be official WCA competitions, but have since been removed. Some of these include Magic, which is a flat puzzle reminiscent of the Jacob's Ladder toy. This event required competitors to change the puzzle's shape, but was removed in 2012, mainly because of the fact that the solving process was the same each time, since the puzzle wasn't random, and therefore the solves lacked competitive variety. Another removed event, and one that's very interesting, is Feet, where cubers would solve the cube as fast as they can with their feet. This competition saw some very unique events, and a world record time of just over 15 seconds. It was ultimately removed in 2020, mainly because of how inconvenient setting up events for it was. It also gave the cubing community a bit of a bad look to outsiders, which the WCA wanted to avoid. There's space in the cubing community for all of these events, official or not. But before you dive into whichever puzzle appeals to you most, we should probably finish learning how to solve the 3x3. We already solved the first layer of the cube, so now let's finish the second. We want to put all the non-yellow edge pieces into their correct spots, so we'll work with the yellow side still facing up. If the edge piece you're looking at is already in the top row, you'll want to rotate the top face until that edge is the same color as the center piece it's aligned with. Then make that face be the one that's directly in front of you. If the edge piece needs to go into the right side position, like in this example, we'll begin the process of moving it there by turning the top face clockwise once, so that the edge moves away from where it needs to end up. Then facing that same side, do a single righty. Next, you'll rotate the whole cube so that you're facing the other side that the edge piece will be on when it's in place. This is also the face opposite to where you just turned that edge piece away. Here, just do a single lefty and your piece will move into the correct place. Now, if your edge piece needs to go into the left side, we'll do the same process opposite. Turn the top face away from where it needs to go, this time to the left. Then do a single lefty. And then rotate the whole cube to that other face and do a single righty. If you have an edge piece that's already in the second row but in the wrong spot, you can get it out by doing the same steps. Imagine it like you're choosing to put a yellow edge piece in that spot for the moment to take the place. Just face the side with that edge so it's on the right side and do a single righty. Then rotate the cube to the other face of that edge piece and do a single lefty. You can then go back to the initial process to put that new free edge piece into the correct position. This seems complex at first, but with a little practice it becomes second nature. Now you've successfully completed the first two layers. But before we head back, we're going to do another short step, so we'll only have to worry about the corners later. On the yellow face, which is still on top, we want to create a yellow cross, reminiscent of the white cross we did in the first step. With the first two layers in place, when you look at the 5 pieces of the yellow side that will make up that cross, you'll see one of 4 things. Don't worry for now about the 4 yellow corners, they can be in any position for this step. If the yellow cross is already there, you got lucky and skipped this whole step. Otherwise, you'll either see a yellow line through the center, a yellow 90-degree angle, or just a single yellow dot in the center. Hold the cube so the yellow side is still facing up. If you have a line, orient it so it's running horizontally in front of you. If it's an angle, it needs to be pointed at you and also to the right. And if it's a dot, you can just start the step on any side. First, rotate the front face once clockwise, unless it's an angle, then rotate the first 2 faces clockwise once, making an F turn as seen here. Then all you have to do is a single righty. To finish, turn those faces back from what you just did, so counterclockwise once with either the first face or the first two faces. You should now see the yellow cross appear on top. If you started with just a dot, it won't jump straight to the yellow cross, and instead you'll have either a line or an angle now. All you have to do here is follow the same steps to fix it. By now, you're already most of the way to having solved a cube. Before you head off to your first speedcubing competition, it's important to understand the concept of average records. At official competitions, it's the organizers who are responsible for scrambling all used cubes, and there's a specific way to do this. First, a cube is taken out of the competitor's sight so as to not allow anyone to have an unfair advantage by seeing it early. Then to officially scramble a cube, the WCA uses a program called T-Noodle, which randomly generates a scramble algorithm that the organizers will use to scramble said cube. It's important that it's done this way so that every cube is scrambled enough to make competition fair. Afterwards, the cube is placed into a cover which will hide it until it's used in a solve. Like I said before though, the scramble is completely random, and that has a big impact on time. The best cubers could have a bad solve time just because they happened to get a scramble that required more effort and steps. The inverse is also possible, and you could get an incredibly lucky scramble that could cut the needed solving steps in half. All this is exactly why the use of average records is so beneficial. When you go to solve a 3x3 at a cubing competition, you'll actually be solving the cube 5 times in total. Your final recorded time for the event is not just the fastest you were able to solve it, but an average of your time minus the fastest and slowest attempt. Let's look at Dominic Radici, for example. This is the 3x3 solving event at the WCA North American Championships in 2024. When Dominic goes to solve, he gets 5 different times through his attempts. 6.09 and 8.81 as his best and worst time are excluded, and his final official time for this round of competition is the average of these 3 attempts, resulting in a time of 7.29. Now the fastest time, even though excluded from the average, can still be counted toward Dominic's single time record, which is just the fastest that they can solve a cube on any attempt. Single time records are what we looked at before when going through the world records, and are often what gains the most attention from general audiences. Average time records, though, are much harder to get, as they're based more on the skill of the cuber, who has to compete their best at each attempt. It's very common that a scramble could end up being far more difficult or more advantageous, and this is why the best and worst times are not counted, to make it less random and more skill-based. This also gives the cuber a freebie if they just had a bad solve or accidentally messed something up. Within the cubing community, average time records can be more impressive because they show that the cuber is skilled enough to get great times consistently. The current average world record time as of August 2025 is 3.91 seconds, set by Yihang Wang. This came from a set of 5 incredible solves, all nearly within a second of each other. It's also the first official average world record time to ever dip under the 4-second mark. This time is also within a second of the single world record, which just shows how much skill these cubers have. Most cubing events score based on these average times, including 2x2 through 5x5, 3x3 one-handed, Scube, Square 1, Pyraminx, Megaminx, and Clock. For some events though, solving times are already so long that official competitions forego doing 5 solves and just do 3, with all counted toward the average. 6x6, 7x7, and FMC, along with 3x3, 4x4, and 5x5 blindfold events, all do only 3 solves also. While these events do have average scores recorded, rankings and bragging rights are usually just based on single times, as most of them have high DNF rates, and it just makes more sense to focus on single times. Multi-blind is the outlier, and while competitors still take 3 attempts, no average scores are even recorded because of the event's already large scale. Cubers know these scoring methods, and at official events, you can see the crowd mentally calculating averages between attempts. It's a big part of the community and makes these events all the more exciting. In order for competitions and the records they create to be consistent and organized, official competitive events follow a common structure. It's the volunteer event organizers that manage who is competing and when, and they help cubers know what event is happening, when to be ready to solve, and allow the event to run smoothly. This goes for the smaller local events all the way to the major ones, which can have hundreds of competitors.
It's pretty crazy. I've been cubing since 2011, and I've never seen anything like this.
It's a much larger scale. I mean, costs, logistics, it's a large team effort. There's a lot of work that goes into this, and a lot of it isn't really seen. A lot of tiny little things here and there. It's really challenging to pull something of this scale off, even compared to just a regular competition. It's just a whole different ballgame.
Local competitions, they always like fizzle out by like the last like 3 or 4 events. This one, like people are here until literally they're kicked out.
Yeah, I don't know the exact number, but I think I've been to over 80 competitions over a span of 7 years. So I guess normal competition, which is going to be 100 to 200 people, hold events just like solving a 3x3 as fast as possible, those sort of things that you'd more expect from a Rubik's Cube competition. There are also, big competitions like nationals, for example. And then there are these types of little competitions where we have, maybe 20 to 40 people, and we just hold mostly blindfolded events. And these are the competitions where I have probably the most fun at.
Once it's their time to solve, cubers are allowed to use their own cubes in official competition, as long as they don't break any of the WCA's cube rules. Most speed cubes fall into this category, and the ones that don't are usually obvious, such as cubes with motors. No matter what though, the cubes have to go through the organizers to be scrambled, so they would catch anything strange going on.
People, with any competitive sport, there's going to be some people who are going to try and cheat to get an advantage, and it does happen. A lot of them are just small things, and oftentimes like little kids who, they weren't really thinking too hard about it, and they realize their mistake, they don't do it again. It's a quick one-time thing. But then sometimes there's every so often a higher profile thing. At the end of the day, for me, it's like why? What's the point? These times it's about beating your best time, and if you cheated to beat yourself, what does that mean for you? Does it hold any value?
It can be pretty stressful at times, being like the only one like in charge of a competition, or when something goes like very wrong at a competition. Because even if I'm not having fun, like a majority of the people are having fun, and it's always cool watching like kids getting into it. We've had competitors as young as like 4.
When you sit down for your attempt, there'll be a few consistent things present. First is the timer in front of you, which is controlled by touch. When you place both hands on the timer, it activates and then begins counting the moment your hands are lifted. In order to stop the timer and get an official time, both hands must be placed back down on the timer.
I organize and delegate competitions in the Southern California region, so Los Angeles, San Diego kind of area. Back in 2022, I was already going to a lot of competitions. My region didn't have enough sort of delegates around, and I was one of the few people in the area who had the necessary experience and knowledge, so I was offered the role and I chose to accept it.
Really just wanting to go to competitions and there being no other organizers in the area. They're just like, well, when are you going to do it? And I was like, I don't know. And then a delegate from Michigan helped me organize my first competition in Madison in 2014, and that was the first one in Wisconsin since 2008. I was just like, trying to organize in areas where there weren't organizers, or like, find someone who's like kind of capable of organizing, but and then like teach them the ropes of how to do it, and I would come out and delegate for them. So we got a lot of competitions in areas where there's a lot of cubers, but they don't have competition, so there's not really experienced organizers in the area.
Along with the timer, a cuber who is about to solve will have a scrambled cube in front of them. It will still be covered at this point so as to not be shown until they're about to begin. There will also be a judge who is the person sitting next to them at the table. They are very important for making a solve possible, and are also required for any competitive attempt to be considered official.
You need to have all the scorecards printed, sorted, make sure everything's going smoothly. As the delegate, I have to provide the scrambles from the computer program and make sure that they're getting switched in between every group, and handle any incidents that might happen, and give out extra attempts when something goes weird. And then at the end, I have to submit the results and submit the report.
Like I said, I started cubing in 2019, so like magnets and stuff were way out at the time.
Yeah.
But people were still getting used to it, because at my first comp, I made the Guhong V2 in my first comp, and I got 15th place out of 75 people. So I proved to people that, older cubes are still good. It's in here somewhere. Like, so I collect more, like, obviously, like I said, rare and stuff cubes. Like, QJ Megaminx version 1 with the tiles.
When everything is prepared, the cuber will give a signal to the judge, who will remove the cover from the cube and start a stopwatch. This is the inspection phase, where the cuber examines the cube without changing it, and it can last up to 15 seconds. When 8 seconds have passed, the judge will give a time notice.
8 seconds.
And if the solve starts after the 15-second mark, an automatic +2 is given to the end solve time. If more than 17 seconds pass in the inspection phase, the solve is an automatic DNF.
I wait for the competitor to say they're ready. When they do, I start the stopwatch, lift the cover. At that point, I'm kind of, going back and forth, stopwatch, the cube, making sure they're not trying to cheat. Very few people have ever tried to do that, but, gotta make sure. Call inspection times, and then I just kind of, when they start their solve, I just watch,
The regulations were kind of wild back in the day. You get 15 seconds to inspect. And then if you go over 15 seconds, it's a +2 second penalty. And if you go over 17 seconds inspection, that's a DNF. And back in the day, like many, many years ago, it would be, you would start the stopwatch, and then at 15 seconds, you would stop it and then count in your head for any further penalties instead of just letting the stopwatch go. There's a bit more precedent on how you handle certain situations, because before something weird and new would happen, be like, I don't know. And they have a lot more committees now for the World Cube Association.
After the inspection phase, the cuber will place the cube down in front of them and then their hands on the timer. The solve starts the moment they pick their hands up. In blindfold solving, the timer will have already started, but the cuber has to place the blindfold on and then begin solving. The judge makes sure this process is done correctly, and also often holds a cover in front of the cuber for an extra layer of hiding it. Then, the cuber will do their best to be as fast as possible, finishing their solve once again with their hands on the timer.
Personally, I think Magic should be brought back just for a little bit, just to see, because new cubers have really loved the idea of Magic. Like yesterday, like Magic was an unofficial event. Like, just like an 8x8, 9x9, because the Dianshengs are really smooth and stuff. I tried one. They're really good. So I'm like, maybe it'd just be super cool.
Back in the day, we would never have a competitor limit. We'd have at-the-door registration. We would just throw up the competition, see who comes. You might get 40, 50 people. And then it started to get where we had to put in a competitor limit, because like a room would be packed, and we're like, oh, that was a few too many people. And then now, so many people got into it over COVID, sometimes the registration will fill instantly.
When an attempt is completed, the cuber will drop the cube down and the judge will check to make sure it's sufficiently solved. This obviously means that all faces are correct, but also that even their last turn made it all the way around and they didn't jump the gun. This does sometimes happen, and a successful completion requires the last side to be more than 45 degrees into place, or the cuber receives a +2 penalty to their time. It's also the judge's job to record the achieved time, as an official record will be required to be signed off on by the judge as well as the competitor. Judges and organizers are volunteers, but they're also often competitors themselves and will commonly compete at their own events. In the same way, competitors also often help judge so that everyone can have a chance to solve, and the event can have many people going at the same time. And this means everyone. Some events are dominated by younger audiences. At these competitions, the organization is no different, and the kids take on the responsibility of judging where it's needed.
And if you look at these competitions, most of them are like volunteer. You see 10-year-old kids judging and writing down data that's going to be concrete in the WCA database that serves the whole world, right? I mean, that's crazy if you think about it, how much we rely on the integrity of a 10-year-old, And the funny thing is that when you give them respect, they rise to the occasion. And that's something I think that a lot of the parents, they discover for the first time, So every time I meet a parent at a cubing competition that's brand new, and he's like, oh, it's my kid's first competition. And every time I look at the parents and I congratulate them. I said, this is the best day in your life, not your kid's life, because you just joined a community that's going to do half your parenting for you. Because these kids are going to teach him integrity, honesty, because this is the only place I know where if the judge writes their time incorrectly to their benefit, they'll correct them and say, no, my time wasn't that good.
These younger cubers are not only willing to volunteer to help, they want to, and they actively become both a welcome and necessary part of the competitive speedcubing community. And this cycle continues. As these kids grow up, they will be the ones making these events happen and welcoming a whole new generation of cubers. Solving a Rubik's Cube fast may be a somewhat niche hobby, but it's by no means a small phenomenon. In 2024 alone, there were official WCA events in the Netherlands, Kuwait, the UK, Slovakia, South Africa, Jordan, Hong Kong, Israel, Argentina, Bolivia, Finland, Germany, Brazil, Mexico, Slovenia, Uzbekistan, Austria, China, Norway, Peru, Croatia, Romania, Canada, Colombia, Portugal, El Salvador, Sri Lanka, Estonia, Ecuador, Hungary, Uruguay, Ireland, India, the Philippines, Singapore, the Czech Republic, Australia, Vietnam, New Zealand, Latvia, Indonesia, Iran, South Korea, Italy, Denmark, Thailand, Malaysia, Japan, France, Spain, Belgium, Guatemala, Poland, Kazakhstan, Sweden, Ukraine, Switzerland, and the United States, of which there were events in 34 states, including Alaska and Hawaii. Whew. This is just 2024, with many of these places having multiple events through the year.
It's always a lot of fun because I get to see a lot of my friends from all over the US and the world, so it's a good opportunity. Like at least once a year I get to see a lot of people I don't normally get to see.
I like how global it is. Like, there's people from everywhere that come,
In 2017, I was on a family vacation in Greece, and there was a cubing competition there, and there was just like 20 of us.
And cubing only continues to grow in popularity, with some competitors becoming household names in the community and setting the bar high for everyone solving worldwide.
3x3 U.S. National Champion, please welcome Max Park.
There's two parts to Max's cubing life. The first part was rising up, his career rising up to get to the point where he's at. That was probably the most joyous time for him. When you're rising up to a certain level, I think that the thing that you're not aware of is that at that point you sort of have nothing to lose. You're just striving to get to the top. And it's very joyous and fun, and everything is just explosively entertaining for him. Once he sort of got to the top level with everybody else, the joy kind of changed a little bit because now you're worried about losing and you're constantly looking over your shoulders to see the 10-year-old kid all of a sudden that's solving at 4-second averages. When you first win, they're like, you did it, and it's a momentous thing. But afterwards, it's like, the only thing that's waiting around the corner for you is you losing, and then everybody's going, what happened? Cubers like Timon and Maddie and Max and Max Shao, Nam, all these guys, they got a lot to lose. They got a lot of eyes on them, and that pressure also weighs on them too.
I try my best not to put too much pressure on myself, especially in this event, because I can very easily do that.
So sometimes you get up there and it's like, your advantage is not working. But
the hard part is doing that without, locking up. Because in competition I get nervous,
I wasn't sure if I could perform under pressure the way I did last year because, there's always a massive 1-year break between majors. So after a 1-year break from doing stuff like that, it always feels a bit uncertain.
It's really not so much about practicing all the time. I think a lot of people think like, oh, you must practice like 10 hours a day. I can tell you right now, when I peek into Max's room, he's practicing like very little. But when he does practice is very purposeful and potent. When all cubers get to sort of like a certain level, they don't need to practice as much. It's more about just getting your mind in the right place. Once you find the joy, you do become better, because it allows you to be more relaxed and confident, and it allows you to get in the zone.
Our next goal in solving this Rubik's Cube is to get the corners into the correct spots. With the yellow still facing up, spin the cube and look at the corner pieces on the top face. You'll want to have each corner in the spot it should go, even if the yellow side is not correctly facing up yet. Turn just the top face, not worrying about the center colors for the moment, and see if you can align the corners. It's likely that this won't initially be possible because the corners are scrambled up. If you're able to align all 4 corners correctly, you've got a big skip and don't have to worry about this step. Otherwise, examine the cube until you can tell if it has 2 corners next to each other that both match, or 2 corners diagonally in the correct positions. Let's start with if 2 corners next to each other are already correctly placed. Align those corners with where they should go by rotating just the top face. Then let's face the side of the cube that has both incorrect corners on it, with yellow still facing up. We're going to rotate the entire cube once counterclockwise, so that now the 2 incorrect corners which need to flip positions are both on the right side face. Then we're going to do 3 righties back to back. After that, turn the cube back clockwise once to the initial way we were holding it, and then do 3 lefties. After this, you can see that our corners have swapped positions. The same process can be used to swap any 2 corners. If your cube has diagonally matching corners, we can follow the same steps to fix it. This will take 2 sets of turns though. For diagonal corner switching, you can start on any face, so choose a front face and then do 3 righties. Then turn the whole cube clockwise once and do 3 lefties. Next, rotate the top face to match the 2 corners you now have placed next to each other with where they should go, and we'll follow the same process as earlier. Have 2 incorrect corners on the face in front of you, then rotate the whole cube counterclockwise once so they're now on the right side face. Do 3 righties, then rotate the cube back clockwise once and do 3 lefties. Just focus on the corner pieces and imagine where they can move by simply switching. By the end, you should have the first 2 layers of the cube completed, the top yellow cross in place, and the 4 corners in the right locations, prepared for the next step where we face the yellow sides up.
So I found this community through a viral YouTube video of the 3x3 single world record at the time of 4.90, and I saw this and I thought it would be cool if I could also learn to solve a cube. So I learned, and I got faster pretty quickly and attended a competition, and at that competition I was really impressed, and I thought it'd be so cool if I could do that too. So I learned how to solve a cube blindfolded after that, and my interest just grew from there. It was something that I found that I had a lot of natural talent for.
Yeah, my older brother, he learned how to solve a Rubik's Cube a while before me, and then I kind of got into it through him. He quit since then. I'm way faster than him. But yeah, and then I had some friends in 6th grade when I started that also learned when I learned, so.
I first got a cube in 2003, and I tried to look it up online, but YouTube hadn't been invented yet. And so as like a 6-year-old, the reading just was way beyond me.
And I just kind of saw it on a random YouTube video one day, and I just I want to get one of those. So I ordered like a cheap Moe one off Amazon, and that's where it started.
Yeah, back in the 90s, my friend and I were both trying to get it as fast as we could, and we both got to around 40 seconds or so. But there were no competitions in the 90s. They didn't actually start up until 2003. So it was just this interesting thing I could do for decades. And then finally I had kids, and my kids wanted to learn how to solve cubes, so I taught them, and then we found out about the competitions going on and decided to all go to them as a family.
I was taught how to solve a Rubik's Cube by my younger brother Ivan. He was inspired and taught by our cousin Levi, who was inspired by our older brother Sawyer, so it's kind of a whole family thing.
Okay, so my son Ivan, he really was into cubing, and he wanted to learn how to do blindfold solving, but it was hard. Blindfold solving is hard. So I said, why don't you teach me, and that might help you, and I might have a few ideas to bounce off of you, and we could figure it out together. So when I learned, he said, okay, now you have to compete.
With most cubers, how they do that is they just start, with normal speed cubing, and then they sort of expand to other events like 4x4, 2x2, and then eventually, I think I was sometime in high school, I decided, I'll learn how to solve it blindfolded, and then I was like, okay, I'm pretty good at this.
I love the cubing community. We owe everything to the cubing community, everything. I mean, Max's success, his future, everything. And so we are so careful and very deferential towards making sure that the cubing community gets the respect and the recognition it deserves.
I mean, yeah, it's fantastic. Everybody wants everybody to do well. It's extremely supportive. I mean, I started competing almost 10 years ago now, and a large part of why I still do is really the community. If it wasn't for the community, I don't know if I would have been doing as much cubing as I do now still.
I love the cubing community. They are so welcoming to everybody, no matter who you are. Like, I am by far the oldest person at most competitions, but people just talk to each other and include each other, and they are so willing to teach new techniques to each other, and people love it when other people get their records. So it's a great, encouraging, awesome community.
The cubing community is really great. There's people for everyone. Like you'll find friends no matter who you are or what you like.
So Max, when he started, he was 10 years old, and so we met a lot of other 10-year-olds that are peers, and now a lot of them graduated. They've already started their lives, and I can't tell you how many successful lives there are. In every field. I actually feel somewhat sorry for parents that don't have their kids in cubing. I feel bad for them because they're missing out on just a ton.
My son started competing about a year ago. He's been doing, basically, he got a cube about 7 years ago, and it took him a while to actually learn to solve it. We had no idea that this was a thing, but once he got comfortable enough to actually come compete, we started last year, and my favorite thing is everyone's got that camaraderie, and everyone looks out for each other. And even though it's competing, I feel like no one's competing against each other. It's really cool to see all these other kids helping the other ones learn new algorithms, and that person might take your record, but they're also willing to teach each other and help each other, and it's really sweet.
I think it's great. Everyone is very supportive. I mean, technically these things are competitions, but it almost never feels like we're competing against each other. It's just we're each pushing to do our own personal bests every time.
When kid gets a new algorithm, they sit there and they get online and they say, hey guys, look what I did. Check this out. What do you think? Is there anything I can improve on? It's just such a sharing community to raise the tide for everybody, and I see that as just, such a success formula.
The community has always served as a really great inspiration to keep pushing through some of my toughest moments. Just having people around that I can kind of theory craft with and really explore ways to truly push the limits of what we're currently capable of doing.
Just the idea of a group of people trying to have fun and come up with new ways to do things and get faster and get better and improve themselves in some way. You kind of see a common trend in a lot of people who want to get better at Rubik's Cubing, and that they want to get better at a lot of different things as well.
This is what I call success. People that are just like succeeding and passionate and happy to get up every day and do what they do and feel grateful, for their life. I see that with these cubers. They get their head on straight really early, and they don't realize how ahead of the game they are.
It's definitely a very important part of my life. I practice it pretty much every day. My results in competitions, I care a lot about it. So, it's a very easy way to relax after a hard day of school or something.
I love collecting. Just seeing how different mechanisms work by different brands and stuff. Because of my collection, I've talked to cubers who've retired for 5-6 years, and I've showed them my collection because this is their era of cubing. Yeah. And they're like, I would get their concept phone and then text me a month later and saying, God damn it, you got me back into cubing. I'm like, that's what brings me joy.
For me, it's an opportunity to challenge myself, to have fun, and to practice with thinking of new ways to do things. It's also just something fun to be able to talk with other people about and to share that experience with.
We always try to support the cubing community as much as we can. And as much as we love the sort of the tightness and the cubing community being really small and intimate, we need to share this. There's some kid out there that his life could be so much better if he was cubing. And we need to find that person and give him, his joy in life. And a lot of these kids, as they grow up, they carry this over into their world. What's the best way to do this? They're constantly asking, isn't there a better way, a quicker way?
The Speedcubing community comes together from all across the world to improve solves, create new techniques, and just join together in having fun cubing. People unite at events and online through forum pages, Reddit threads, Discord servers, YouTube channels, and so much more. No matter who you are or where you're from, there's a place for you in the cubing community, and it's become a way for many people to make connections and find somewhere they belong.
Well, Max, he's on the spectrum. He doesn't have as much appreciation for that kind of emotion. I know that if I went to a restaurant and somebody asked my autograph, I feel like a big shot and I feel pretty good. Max doesn't sort of feel that as much. He's probably more thinking, why do you want me to scribble on your paper? For what purpose?
Matty Hiro, Nava, Tommy Cherry, Luke Garrett.
Yeah, I think that people see Max and they know his story. There's a purity to who he is. He doesn't really hide anything. And when he's sad, he cries, and I think that he sort of wears his vulnerability on his sleeve, and I think people connect with that. I think people connect with anybody that they can kind of connect with as far as when they're having a hard time, or they can just sort of share their experience.
This community also does a lot to support its minority female audience and help build them up in an activity that has always been more male-dominated. And now there are more women in cubing than ever. Some major cubing events even have a separate bracket just for girls, in addition to the main one, which includes everybody. This helps to lift them up and create more equity within the community. All that said though, there have always been women in cubing, and some incredible ones at that.
Developed in one shot. So I had, for the first 2 layers, I used to simply do the first layer and then insert the cubies into the second layer.
Competitive cubing is a mixed bag of people, but one that is very united and supportive. When it comes to the creation of new techniques, finding better ways to practice, or just getting over a hard loss. Even when it's someone surpassing your record or beating you at an event, this community is one full of amazing people, and each win is a win for everyone.
Please welcome Timon Koloshinsky.
At the close of 4 days of competition at the 2024 WCA North American Championships, the last event to finish was the final round of 3x3 solving. Competing for first and second place were Max Park and Timon Koloshinsky, 2 incredible cubers who both have major cubing achievements and a real shot at this win. Max does his 5 solves first, and his average time score comes out to 5.69 seconds, nothing to scoff at. Timon, with the last solves to close off the entire event, can feel the pressure, and the crowd is visibly on the edge of their seats. After 4 solves, his times are looking good, but he's already burned his longest solve, so he has to get a 7.09 or less to win the competition. This should be doable, but he could still get unlucky or barely miss the mark. He begins the solve knowing the stakes of this attempt. To push into the last leg of our solve, we want to make our last 4 corners correctly have the yellow sides facing the right way. To start, let's flip the cube back over so that the white side is finally facing up again. It won't matter which side you start on, but pick a face to keep as the front facing you. We're going to be paying attention to the piece on the bottom right-hand side. If that corner is already in place, just turn the down face until that same bottom right corner piece is one where the yellow side is not already facing down. Then you're just going to do righties until that corner has gone back into the bottom right spot and has the yellow face correctly pointed down. Make sure to not rotate the cube at all, and make sure that you finish all 4 turns of each righty. It will take multiple before the piece is correctly placed. This might seem like it's messing it up more, but it's all part of the process. Once you fix one corner, again rotate just that bottom face until another corner without the yellow pointed down is in that bottom right-hand spot. Then again do righties until it's placed the correct way. Follow this process with all of the corners that need to be fixed, and at the end, the cube should go back to being just about completed. You can end this step by turning that bottom face to match the corners with the respective colors, so that the only thing incorrect on the cube is the center edge pieces. It can be hard to believe that so much history and community surround this colorful square. But there's just something about the challenge, the symmetry, and the satisfaction of that final turn that just pulls everyone in. Solving a Rubik's Cube isn't a test of intelligence, it's a test of practice, patience, and persistence. In the world of competitive speedcubing, it's a showcase of mastery of their craft. Through 5 decades, this community has moved from the feat of just solving the cube in general to being able to finish a solve 3 times in just the length of this sentence. In the end, cubing has always been about the joy of it. The joy of seeing your turns get closer to completion, the joy of trying over and over again, the joy of just being a part of something. You don't have to break any records. You don't even have to complete it. You just have to want to try. There are so many different kinds of cubes, different events to participate in, and competitions all over the world. If I haven't made it clear, I'm encouraging you to try to be a part of it all, even just from the background.
Yeah, I think anyone can learn how to solve it, no matter your intelligence or background. It took me like maybe a couple days to learn how to solve. I guess it's hard at first, but like, I don't know, for me now it's second nature.
Just about anyone could learn to solve a cube. Like, if all you care about is getting one solved in 5 minutes, anyone could do that. A weekend of practice, and you could probably learn to solve a cube in 5 minutes.
It's hard unless you decide to want to learn. And then when you decide to want to learn, it's not that hard. You could if you wanted to, but you just have to take the time to invest in it and do that. So.
But but the barrier for entry is pretty low, I would say. I'd say like a vast majority of people, given a few hours, a couple days, a week, whatever, would be able to do it.
It's sort of like riding a bike. It's going to be a foreign and difficult concept to grasp at first, but once it sort of starts to click, then it drops in difficulty super drastically, and it becomes almost subconscious.
I can understand if it's hard to get into because you just see people that are like so much faster, but I think it's just buy a cube, learn how to solve. Only worry about your own times. Don't think about other people and how fast they are, and it's a lot of fun.
Probably less than 1% of the population could figure out a solution on their own. But solutions are out there. You can go on YouTube and find beginner's tutorials, and at that, for just following a beginner's tutorial, no, I would say not. Anyone could do that.
Very few people who have ever learned it on their own, like, okay, I'm not going to ask for help, I'm just going to figure it out. That is hard. It's very difficult. But as far as if you just want to be able to solve one, there are a lot of good resources out there that can get you there really quickly, and it's a lot easier than people expect. It's hard enough to where you feel good that you've done it, but easy enough to where it's totally doable.
Considering that you've almost finished your own solve, you're already a cuber, and I would love the chance to help make that 30% just a little bit lower. Because each solved cube is proof of a shared connection. It's incredibly unlikely that anyone learns to solve a cube completely on their own, but why should they have to when so many people are here to help teach them how? You might be the newest person to learn to solve, but you can also be the next step in connecting with someone else who will go through the same learning process that you have. And if nothing else, the next time someone brings out a Rubik's Cube, or you simply see one sitting on a desk, you can look at it and say, yeah, I can solve that. After that last step, it's possible that you got lucky enough to already finish your solve, but more than likely you're one step away and on the edge of your seat. Well, there's no better way to start you off joining the Speedcubing community and wrap up everything we've learned by finishing that solve. For our last step, we just need to make these few edge pieces be in the right places. Let's flip the cube so that yellow is again facing up and begin with the last few turns. Our cube could either have 3 incorrect center edges and 1 completed face, or all 4 center pieces could be scrambled. If one face is correct, make that be the side facing you and make sure to keep it there. Otherwise, feel free to start on any side as long as yellow is facing up. We'll finish our cube with a very easy step that's just a little tedious. For now, we want to start by doing 1 righty, and then 1 lefty. Next, you're going to do 5 righties, followed by 5 lefties. Through this whole process, make sure you're being very careful to complete all 4 turns of each righty and lefty. This is the perfect example of how speed solving works, as the solution will work every time, but if you really want to get faster, you can memorize more algorithms that would make this part of your attempt much quicker. This can be a little intensive, but as you get closer to the end, the cube will begin to look more solved. Once you finish all those turns, you might find yourself back at a nearly solved cube with a few incorrect edges. This is okay, and just means that you have a longer scramble and need to do this process again. This will always be the case if you started with 4 center edges incorrectly positioned. Again, face the side of the cube that is already solved, then do a righty and a lefty. Follow that with 5 righties and 5 lefties. As you near those last few turns, you might feel the pressure build. Remember to take it slow and not get overwhelmed so that you don't miss a single turn. This pressure is a mirror to the way that so many cubers feel as the timer counts up and they spin the cube like it's a part of them, headed for that personal record. And just like that, not only do you understand how competitive speedcubing works, know all about the different kinds of puzzles and events, understand the community that exists around this hobby, and have insight into the detail of how it's all possible. But you yourself are a part of it, because you just solved a Rubik's Cube.
Never to touch the night you wonder, you never
right, hello everybody. We are currently standing inside of the North American Championships for Speedcubing. I can't do this. Can't point with this. Hi everybody, we're on set. No, I gotta do a better intro than that. Next. Big mission. For the big guy.
Womack, he's the one who really got me into collecting. Thank you, Michael. If you see this in a year or so, love you, Pookie. But that's kind of weird, but cause
It's sort of like a fantasy camp. They get to learn, meet a lot of friends, and Cube Camp is something that just sort of fosters sort of that message that Felix and Max have started about friendship and integrity.
On this fine Sunday morning. I think I can interview Children again. No.